So, friend, you've been studying the most authentic spiritual teachings you can find and practicing with your whole heart. But you're still waiting for the stable peace and happiness you were promised. So now you make an understandable but terrible error. You imagine there must be something wrong with you. These teachings you've been studying are held in such high esteem. It must be you that's the problem, right? Wrong. Here's what almost no one will tell you. When you sit down to meditate, hoping for positive change, but you find only mental emotional turmoil, this is not failure, but success. You might experience relief, but if you go after that relief directly, you chase it away. The suggestion that you should be able to make yourself calm, happy, peaceful, as if making yourself stronger at the gym, is ultimately an error in the teaching, not in yourself. Friend, the spiritual practice you really want to be doing is easy. It's teaching it that's hard. Because it's about describing something that's beyond description. Adyashanti said his job when it comes to explaining awakening is to fail well. It takes an almost impossible degree of skill on the part of the teacher to avoid leading you into a trap. But assuming they're a genuinely realized teacher with proper motivation, it's not their fault when they lay that trap, and it's certainly not your fault when you fall into it. But I've been developing this skill for almost 10 years now, and this experience has shown me that there is a way to avoid these traps. So I'm going to share it with you. The major error in spiritual teachings is this. You've been led to believe that if you practice correctly, you should feel better. Perhaps not instantly, but the promise, explicit or implicit, is that there is a cause-effect relationship between meditating and getting enlightened. Or at least not feeling so sad when your colleague takes the last biscuit. The problem is, when you make feeling better the goal of your spiritual practice, as I said, you chase it away. Wanting to feel good is not a good feeling. Most spiritual instructions contain traces of relativistic thinking. For example, if you do enough meditation, your stress will disappear. This is a reasonable instruction for a beginner. It encourages you to quit partying every weekend and instead practice. But it is a provisional instruction, meaning one which must be replaced later on. You're not a beginner anymore. You need a different level of instruction. And that level of instruction is much harder to find. The notion that doing something can make your stress disappear is wrong, because ultimately stress is only resolved in non-doing. In my previous video, I shared a new metaphor for spiritual practice and awakening. In this metaphor, mental emotional processes are software. The environment they run in, awareness, is the operating system. And the spiritual practice I recommend, recognizing and resting as that awareness, is hitting Control-Alt-Delete. This is to zoom out from the contents of awareness, your afflictive thoughts and feelings, buggy software, and instead recognize the space in which those thoughts and feelings, that buggy software, occurs. I've shared this practice with hundreds of people, and they've enjoyed remarkable results sooner or later. Mark was one who got results sooner. He'd meditated for years, but was nonetheless struggling emotionally with a major life transition, and this was affecting his career. I taught him what I'm teaching you here, and he opened up like a flower in spring. But crucially, it's not that his emotions vanished immediately. Rather, it's that he saw them in a new way. Typically, people do pretty well when I'm guiding them through this in the moment. They're able to hit Control-Alt-Delete and zoom out, at least to some degree. They get that broader perspective on the buggy software they're running. For example, they might be running secondguessing.exe. But then they try to continue this recognition on their own and come back to me saying something like, Dan, I still feel anxious. It didn't work. To which I reply, but you saw that you were anxious, right? Yeah, they say. So I throw my hands in the air and shout, great! That student did exactly what they were supposed to do. Real spiritual practice is not about changing what you're thinking and feeling. It's about seeing what you're thinking and feeling. So what's the point then, Dan? You might ask, understandably. Why am I even doing this if not to feel better? Well, here's the key point, friend. The more clearly you see your buggy software, your anxiety, your second guessing, the more you see how harmful and unnecessary it is. The more you see how harmful and unnecessary it is, the less energy you dedicate to it. And when you starve a buggy process of resources, it self-terminates. One of the ways this played out for me was in the death of my musical career. I saw that all my performance work was fueled by an outdated teenage ambition to prove myself to the world. But the work was terrible. I was literally sustaining chronic back pain to keep forcing myself to do bad work at bad hours for bad money. The more I saw validation-seeking.exe for what it was, the less energy I wanted to give it, until eventually it self-terminated And in its absence, confidence wasn't created, but was rather revealed. Relief, peace, contentment, well-being is an indirect consequence of this practice. It will occur. In fact, it's your true nature. It's your default mode. But if you go after it directly, then again, you chase it away. So, you're not doing anything wrong when you practice and still feel bad. Feeling better is a lagging indicator of correct practice. Seeing clearly is the leading indicator. So seeing that you feel bad is successful practice. You're acknowledging the buggy software you're running, and this further informs your practice. Here's what awakening really looks like. You hit Control-Alt-Delete, you zoom out, and stop wrestling with your experience for just a brief moment. You see a buggy process like validationseeking.exe running. You acknowledge the seeing as success. You feel good about that, deservedly so. And then because you feel good, you're more inclined to practice. So you practice more. You realize more and more the harmful and unnecessary nature of your buggy software. You stop dedicating resources to it, and it self-terminates. Finally, you experience that sweet relief you were seeking all your life. But not because you were seeking it, not because you were trying to make it happen, rather because you were looking at things as they really are. Those buggy processes cannot survive this. But if you're like I was, you may still hold the question, but when, Dan? How long will this take? Because I don't know that I can continue as I am. And this is the great paradox of freedom, friend. You'll get relief when you stop seeking it. And this just occurs in a single moment. Then another, then another. Okay, Dan, you might say, but I want lasting relief. But friend, what is a minute of relief, if not a succession of moments of relief? I strongly encourage you to narrow your focus and lower your standard. A single moment is all any of us have. You cannot make happen a whole day of relief any more than you can make happen a whole night of good sleep. All you can do is create the right conditions. So the sooner you shift your attitude from my practice is about feeling better to my practice is about seeing clearly, paradoxically, the sooner you'll feel better. The sooner you'll stop running buggy software that obscures your natural good feeling. If you remember one thing from this video, friend, remember this. Real spiritual practice is not about changing what you're thinking and feeling. It's about seeing what you're thinking and feeling. But don't take my word for it. Experiment with what I've shared here and see what happens in your own experience. This is the first step to debugging your human operating system and realizing effortless peace as your default mode. The second step is to get a read on exactly where you're at in this whole picture right now. For this, I designed a 1-minute quiz, which will tell us how your system is running right now. And once I know that, I can send you some personalized guidance on how to proceed. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you want more of them, subscribe. I hope to see you back here real soon.